All right, in this particular episode on Leachianus care, I want to talk about one of the fundamental differences between the Leachianus geckos and the other geckos of the Rhacodactylus genus. Of course, if you've read up on recent changes in the nomenclature and the taxonomy, technically they're not all in the same genus Rhacodactylus anymore, but we still kind of consider them all as one group: the crested geckos, the gargoyles, the chewies, and all that. The major difference here is that these guys, their social structure is different, particularly in terms of the fact that they're aggressive towards one another. And so I want to use this male as an example. You want to always house your Leachianus geckos singly. You never want to house them in pairs. Even female pairs are not a good idea. There's a few breeders that have been successful housing one male and two females, but most people either house them as individuals or they house them as compatible breeding pairs. So if you've got a hatchling, you've got juveniles, you want to keep them as individuals. When they're young, they will cannibalize one another. So if you keep a couple together and one will always outgrow another. I've noticed this in breeding all other rhacodactylid animals like gargoyles and cresteds, that you'll always get those one or two individuals that eat more. And particularly with the Leachianus geckos, they will begin to cannibalize one another and actually start to consume one another. Now, gargoyles will do the same thing, so you kind of have to be careful with them as well. So in terms of their social structure, you want to keep them as individuals. What I do want to show you in this video is what can happen when these guys get to be aggressive. So this is a male. He is a new Ami, new Anna cross. And I want to show you a couple things about him. Getting away from me. All right, let's see if we can get him to behave. I want to show you first here where he's lost his tail. He's actually been with a female for the last 2 years, and they have been a compatible breeding pair, but at the end of the breeding season, they got a little bit aggressive with one another, and so she nipped off his tail, so you can see his tail's growing back. And I also want to show you on his head. You can see where he has those marks on his head that they almost look kind of washed out. Let's see if I can get in a little closer. Those are actually scars. He and the female, they really tied up with one another one night, and right there in the center of his head, it almost got to the point where you could see bone because she had ripped off so much flesh. So he's shed 3 or 4 times since then, and another couple of sheds, and he'll probably look just like normal. But these guys can be very aggressive. Also, on his foot, I'm not sure if you can see it, there's actually the very end of one of his toes is missing where that got bit off. And so if you're not careful, these guys can really, really hurt each other. And all of this damage happened in just one night. So here's 2 animals that, for all practical purposes, are a quote-unquote compatible pair, but they can still even sometimes show aggressive tendencies towards one another. So you do want to make sure that you keep these guys as singles. If you do have a compatible pair, you still have to watch them, because sometimes you never know. You'll wake up one morning or you'll come home. In my circumstance, I came home one night and found the 2 of them just absolutely tearing each other apart, and so I had to separate them. And they are going to remain separated until they're going to remain separated through the winter, through the cooling period, and then I'm going to reintroduce them in the spring, and hopefully they will still breed. I love this male. He's got so much red in him when he really fires up. And he's actually got a little bit of orange there, but lots of reds and pinks. The new Amis and the new Annas are typically the most colorful, and the most colorful of all Leachies are the crosses between the new Amis and the new Annas.